Welcome, welcome, welcome yet again, Game Yard family, to another video. No, it's always, a delight to have you, joining us for another video. Now, we will, be looking on the IPL, the Indian Premier League. The retention policy for 2025 would have been published some time now, and we will be looking on the the policies, right? So I guess the first question that you may want to ask yourself is, you know, uh, in the policy, there is a mega auction to be held on November 24 and 25, and so why is there a mega auction? And before we proceed, I just want to mention that the source that I would have got this information is currently on your screen. It's from ESPN Cricket Info, and the URL is also displayed there. So this information is public information. It's not my information, right? I just collate the information and giving it to you, right? So why is there a mega auction for IPL 2025, right? So every year, every 3 year, the IPL franchises undergoes a reset of some sort. They are allowed to retain only a small number of players, a maximum of six players this time around, and they must rebuild their squad at the mega auction, right? In other years, that's the year in between the 3 years, the team can retain as many players as they like in that mini auction, which takes place over the course of one day. But this mega auction will take place over 2 days, right? Because of the number of players up for bidding in is much higher than the mini auction, right? So this mega auction will be held, as I said before, November 24 and 25, right? And we will give you more details as it relates to the venue and so forth as we go along, right? So the second question you may want to ask: how many players can a franchise retain? How many players can a franchise retain? As I would have said, it's six players from their 2024 squad, of which maximum of five can be capped international, Indian or overseas players, right? And two can be uncapped Indian players. Six players is the highest number of retention permitted by IPL ahead of the mega auction to allow franchises to keep their core intact ahead, right? So each team, they have a maximum of six retention, but they can you know they can retain less than the six if they think that they want to go in the auction to get some different players, right? So they are not compelled, to retain six players, right? So that is that's how it is as it relates to the players retention, right? The third question is, what does it cost a franchise to retain players, right? So each team has a purse of Indian rupee 120 crore, right? That's a maximum amount of money that each team can spend, right? And this purse is for both the auction and also the retention. So the combination of the retention and also the auction should be 120 core. And I think the reason for this is that they want to have a level playing field. So the more wealthier clubs do not have an advantage over the not so wealthy clubs, right? So they're trying to make a level playing field as it relates to the amount of spending each franchise can be involved in, right? So that 120 is a 20% increase from last year, with which to build their squad for IPL 2025. For the first players retained, right? A team will lose 18 core from their purse, 14 core for the second player, 11 core for the third player, 18 core again for the fourth player, and 14 core again for the fifth player retained. For every uncapped player retained, a team will lose 4 core from the purse, right? So if a team retains 5 cap international, they will lose at least 75 core from their purse of 120 core. And we will get into that as we go through each team retention, player retention, right? So please stay tuned for that. I will do that in another video, so you will have a better appreciation of what is being said here, right? So the next question you may have, can the Indian rupee 75 core be split among the 5 retained players as the franchise's wishes? And the answer is yes. The IPL has told franchises that they can slice the 75 core retention pot as they want if they are retaining 5 capped players. If the franchise spend more than 75 core to keep 5 capped players, then the higher amount will be deducted from the purse, right? So there has to be some really good negotiation between the franchises and the players in order to stay within that 75 core band, right? Because you don't want to overspend, so that when you go to the mega auction, you will have enough money to spend there for the remaining players that you would want in the franchise. So if a team retain only 1 cap player, they will lose minimum of 18 core from their purse, right? For 2 cap players, they will lose at least 32 core, that is 18 plus 14, or the higher amount they actually paid. So for example, suppose a team negotiate, because by right the first player that you retain should cost 18 core, right? So say for example the player that you want to retain, you're negotiating and they say, boy, I need 23 million, 23 core, sorry, right? And then the second player, right, is 14 core, right? That would be 23 plus 14, 37, right? So it would be more than this 32. So the franchises would have to be, very good at negotiating so that they stay within this 18 and 14 band, right? Because if they negotiate and it goes over this 32 core, then whatever that higher figure than the 32, that amount will be taken from the 120 that is in the purse, right? So for 3 cap players, it is at least 43 core, right? And that is 18 plus 14 plus 11. Remember, I would have gone through what the first player would cost, the second player retain would cost, the third player retain would cost. So these are the numbers I'm quoting here. So you can go back and look on those numbers that I would have quoted earlier, right? And for the 4th cap player, it is at least 61 core, right? Which is 18 plus 14 plus 11 plus 18 core again, right? So that's how the 75 can be split, right? As it relates, all right, so let's continue. However, if a team retains 5 cap players, the 75 core that will be deducted from the purse can be divided among the players in any proportion, right? So while their first player can be retained for 23 core, they could keep the fifth player at an amount lower than the stipulated deduction of 14 core, right? To stay within the 75 core deduction as long as the franchise can keep an agreement with the player. That's what I was saying. So you can negotiate, with those five players to see whether or not you can split up that 75 core in order to benefit from having those five cap players, right? All right, there are question over whether captain will be retained by their teams or want to enter into auction themselves, and whether some teams would prefer to retain two or three players and use the right to match, that is RTM option, to buy back other at the mega auction. And I'm going to go through what is meant by right to match, right? So what is right to match? Right to match basically enables the franchise to buy back their players by matching the highest bid at the mega auction instead of retaining them beforehand, right? A team that retained fewer than six players on October 31st, 2024, will have some uh, right to match option available to them to buy back players at the mega auction, right? So if a team retains only three players on October 31st, 2024, October 31st, 2024 was the deadline for all the franchises to, present the teams or the players that they would have retained, right? That was the deadline. So let me reread that. A team that uh, a team that retains fewer than six players on October 31st, 2024 will have some right to match option available to them to buy back players at the mega auction. So if a player retain only three players, if a team only retain three players, they will have three right to match option to use at the mega auction, right? A franchise that retain no players will enter the mega auction with six right to match option. A team that retains six players, right, will have no right to match option at the auction, right? So if a team has retained five cap players, they can use the remaining RTM, which is right to match option, to buy back only an uncapped player. And if a team has already retained two uncapped players, they can't use RTM option um, on another of uncapped players, because if you use the policy says that we can only have two uncapped player in the team. So if a team would have retained two uncapped player already, they cannot they would not have any RTM option, to get any more uncapped players, because only two uncapped players are allowed in the auction. So if a team only retain three players, right, then they would have the RTM of three RTM at the mega auction, right? Because they, as I said before, they have the option to retain six players. So if they only retain three, then they have the option to use their right to match at the auction. They would have three options, because they would have retained three, and they would have the other three would be their RTM. And what that means is that at the auction, right, if they would have had a player last year say for example in 2024, right, because we're talking about 2025. So say for example Punjab, for example, uh, they would say, for example, they would not have retained Harshdeep Singh this year, right? And in the auction in 2025, say for example, Mumbai would have, won the auction for Arshdeep Singh, right? Even though Mumbai would have won that auction, Punjab has the right, which is the right to match, to, bid for that player, even though Mumbai would have won the auction, right? And they can use their RTM option to get back Arshdeep Singh, even though Mumbai would have won the auction. So that's what right to match. And let me go a little bit further. Punjab bidding for Arshdeep, in the hypothetical example I would have given to you, it doesn't mean that they would have won Arshdeep Singh, because what the retention policy does this year is that even though Punjab would have used their RTM option, then Mumbai can still bid, higher for Arshdeep Singh. So it's not a case where once a team use their RTM, they eventually get the player. No, it doesn't work like that. The team that would have won that auction, they still have an option also to go, higher in relation to bid for the player. So it's a, I mean, I think it's a very good idea, So team will have to be very careful as it relates to how they would, utilize their RTM option at the auction, right? All right, so let's move on. How does the RTM option work at the auction? I would have, just explained it. If a player has been brought for another team, right? uh, at the mega auction, the franchise that he was a part of IPL 2024 can step in at the end of the bidding process and buy back their player by matching the highest bid, right? But there's a twist this time compared to when the RTM rule was last used at the mega auction in 2018. At 2025 mega auction, if a team wants to buy back a player using the RTM option, the franchise that made the winning bid will be given another option to raise their bid to whatever amount they wish, right? In that case, the player's previous team will have to match the increased bid in order to buy back their player. So, so that's the twist, this year, and I think that makes a lot of sense, right? All right. So again, let us go back through the example. So let's take Punjab Kings Arshdeep Singh as an hypothetical example. You know, if two other teams bid for Arshdeep and one of them wins the bid, then Punjab can step in and use their RTM option to match the highest bid. But as per the modified RTM rule, franchise that place the highest bid has the option to raise their bid to an amount which Punjab will have to then match again if they want to buy back Arshdeep using the RTM option. Right. Hope that is clear. All right. So the next question is, what about, MS Dhoni? Because there are a lot of talk about MS Dhoni being an uncapped player, in the uncapped player category this year. Yes, the IPL has revised the rule. It had scrapped in 2021, which allowed capped Indian players who retired or have not played international cricket in the last 5 years to be categorized as uncapped players. This means Chennai Super Kings can retain Dhoni as an uncapped player at a deduction of Indian rupee 4 crore from their purse unless they pay him more, of course, right? So this rule also, applies to other players, such as Sandeep, Sandeep Sharma, Mohit Sharma, etc., etc. so they can be, played or be retained as uncapped players, right? Once they would have been, retired, or they have not played international cricket for the last 5 years, right? So can players refuse to be retained by an IPL team, right? The answer is yes. If a player does not want to remain with a franchise, they can refuse a retention offer and enter the mega auction. Also, there are no player trade allowed between the retention deadline of October 31 and the start of the 2025 season. Right? I think that is very clear. All right, when is the IPL 2025 mega auction? As I would have said before, the auction will take place on November 24 and 25, 2024. Right? And the venue for the auction, the venue for the 2025 mega auction is in Saudi Arabia city of Jeddah. It's been held overseas for only the second time. The 2024 auction was in Dubai, right? The two-day auction is scheduled to begin 12:30 local time on November 24, 2024. This year, the IPL 2025 auction will clash with the fourth day of the Australia versus India test in Perth, right? All right, so how many players are there in the IPL 2025 auction? As many as 1,574 players registered for IPL 2025 mega auction, but the list has been shortened to 574 players. 366 are Indians and 208 are overseas players. Right? I think that is very clear. Will there be marquee set players like the previous two mega auction in 2018 and 2022? The answer is yes. In fact, there are two marquee players set right at the start of the auction. Expect the team to bid fiercely for those players. The first set of marquee players contain Josh Butler, Shreyas Iyer, Rishabh Pant, Kagiso Rabada, Arshdeep Singh, Mitchell Stark. And the second marquee set of players are Yuzvendra Chahal, Liam Livingston, David Miller, KL Rahul, Mohammad Shami, and Mohammad Siraj. Right? Who are the other big names in the IPL 2025 auction? Right? There are plenty. Among the Indian players, there are Ishan Kishan, Ashwin, Harshal Patel, Khalid Hamid, Deepak Chahar, Venkatesh Iyer, and a lot more. You know, and you may see it on screen now. And as it relates to overseas players, you have David Warner, Glenn Maxwell, Faf Duplessis, Devon Conway, Tim David, Rachin Ravindra, Quinton de Kock, Marcus Toynis, Sam Curran, Johnny Beerstow, and many others. Right? How will the bidding take place? The marquee players will go up for bidding first, separated into two groups of 6 each. Right? The next round of names to go up will be the cap players, divided into sets based on their specialization, such as batters, all-rounders, wicket-keeper batters, fast bowlers, and spin bowlers. This will followed by the round of uncapped players divided by their specialization. After players number 116, subject to timing, the auction will enter its accelerated phase, covering all players from 117 to 574. After this, franchises will be asked to submit names of unsold players from the full list, who will go up once more for bidding in another accelerated phase. Right? How many players can a team buy at the 2025 mega auction? The size of each franchise squad is a maximum of 25, minimum size of 18, and there are 10 teams, so a maximum of 250 players in total. 46 players have already been retained by the teams, and I will be going through these retained players in another video, so stay tuned. Leaving a maximum of 204 slots to be filled during the IPL 2025 auction. Each squad can have a maximum of 8 overseas players, so there are 70 slots for overseas players at the auction. Right? So I will go into this in more details in the other video, and I will tell you that as it relates to CSK, they have 20 slots, 7 overseas players. RCB has 22 slots with 8 overseas players. SRH, Sunrisers, would have had 20 slots with 5 overseas players. Mumbai Indians would have had 20 slots with 8 overseas. Delhi Capital, 21 slots with 7 overseas. Rajasthan Royals, 19 slots, 7 overseas. Punjab Kings have 23 slots with 8 overseas. KKR, 19 slots, 6 overseas. Gujarat Titans would have had 20 slots with 7 overseas. And Lucknow Super Giants would have had 20 slots with 7 overseas. I think this will make more sense to you when I am going through. And I'm going to go back through this slide in the next video, right? When I will be going through all the retention for each team. So stay tuned for that video. Thank you for joining us as I try to explain the new retention policy. Hope you have a better appreciation of the policies, and hope you have a better understanding of the 2025 retention policy and the 2025 IPL mega auction. Thanks again for watching, guys. Please remember to subscribe to the channel, and have yourself a wonderful evening.